So we are continuing the series of blood, under which we are already done with formation of blood and the composition of blood. Now it's turn for formed elements. Wait, what are formed elements? Under the composition of blood, I showed you that it contains 55% plasma and 45% blood cells or blood corpuscles. These blood cells or blood corpuscles, they are known as formed elements. Among the blood cells, the one that is found in highest number is your RBCs. And this is the formed element that is found in highest number. And that's the one that we're going to see in this particular video. And in this particular video, all concepts that you need to know for red blood cell will be covered, that you need to know for CEE, NEET, class 11, class 12, I don't care. For all competitive exams, you will come to know in just one video. Okay, let's begin. Erythrocyte. I just missed a T. Erythrocyte. Erythro meaning red and cyte meaning cell. So erythrocyte is the other name which has been given for red blood cells. Under the topic of red blood cell, we're going to see various properties, formation, this and that. And we are going to begin with the title number 1, and that is erythropoiesis. Erythropoiesis contains two parts. There your erythro part and then poiesis part, where erythro refers to RBC and poiesis refers to formation. So erythropoiesis is also known as the formation of RBC. How does erythropoiesis take place? This is how it takes place. Let me use a better pen. Okay. Here's your kidney, out of which pelvis comes out, which extends in the form of ureter. Kidney contains special cells that produce hormone, namely erythropoietin. Erythropoietin is that hormone which initiates the process of erythropoiesis. Erythro refers to RBC, poietin refers to that begins poiesis or formation. So erythropoietin hormone produced by the special cells present in your kidney starts the process of erythropoiesis. Where are the receptors for erythropoietin found? Obviously, it is found in that place where erythropoiesis takes place. And where does erythropoiesis take place? It takes place in erythropoietic tissue. Erythropoietic tissue after birth is found in the long bone. What I have shown here is the epiphysis part of the long bone, and the epiphysis part of the long bone contains red bone marrow. This red bone marrow surrounding the spongy bone in the epiphysis of long bone is your erythropoietic tissue. So red bone marrow. Erythropoietic tissue after birth is different as that present before birth. To know what's present as the erythropoietic tissue or the hemopoietic tissue, you gotta watch the previous video under the title Formation of Blood. Better watch it and then return to this video. But do return here. Please don't leave me. Okay. What happens in the red bone marrow? In the red bone marrow, you have these large cells that contain nucleus in the middle. That contains nucleus in the middle. And this is the precursor cell for erythrocyte known as erythroblast. Where erythro refers to red blood cell and blast means precursor cell. So this is the cell that gives rise to RBCs. How? This is how. So firstly, there's your erythroblast. Erythroblast divides and redivides, multiplies, and then finally matures, but partially, to form a cell which looks something like this. The cell has a nucleus in the middle, and then it has all other cell organelles a typical animal cell is supposed to have. That is endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, and all other cell organelles that you would expect an animal cell to have. This particular structure also has traces of hemoglobin. small trace of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin has just started to form. This particular structure is known as reticulocyte. And since hemoglobin, which is the main component of a mature RBC, has just started to form, reticulocyte is also known as immature RBC, since it has not matured yet. So it contains what and what? It contains organelles and it contains minute traces of hemoglobin. Once this reticulocyte matures, it forms an even smaller cell which does not contain any cell organelle, not even nucleus, but is completely filled with the respiratory pigment or hemoglobin. And this right here is known as erythrocyte. Reticulocyte is the immature RBC which gets matured to form your mature RBC. Here's your mature RBC. But for reticulocyte to mature, your body must contain few things, and those stuff are: number 1, your body must have folic acid. Number 2, your body must have vitamin B12 or cyanocobalamin. Number 3, your body must contain iron. Deficiency of any of this stuff can stop the process of erythropoiesis or the process of mature RBC formation. Another thing that's important is Cassell's intrinsic factor. Because Cassell's intrinsic factor, which is something which is produced by the cells present in your stomach, helps in the absorption of vitamin B12. No matter how much vitamin B12 you ingest, as long as Cassell's intrinsic factor is not being produced by your stomach, it's not going to get absorbed by your body, and then it's not going to get used. So vitamin B12 is basically useless without Cassell's intrinsic factor. That's why you need this as well. Okay, so what did I say? A mature RBC is nothing but a bag filled with hemoglobin. After maturation, what changes have you seen? Change number 1, there are no organelles, and including nucleus, there's no nucleus as well. And change number 2 is that the size of the cell has become even smaller. It's small sized. Okay, so now the mature RBC has formed. Now we have our erythrocyte, our favorite erythrocyte. But we need to know, what does an erythrocyte look like? This is what it looks like. Shape. When you look at an erythrocyte from front, so this is the front view of this erythrocyte, it looks something like this. So this is the front view. But if I cut this erythrocyte in half and then observe it from the side, this is the side view of erythrocyte. You can see that there's concavity from two sides, there and there, and that's because there's no nucleus inside the cell. Since there's no nucleus, there's concavity or depression from two sides. So from this you can conclude the shape of the RBC. That is, RBC is round, which you can see in the front diagram. It is biconcave, which you can see in the side view, and enucleated, because after maturation all the cell organelles, they disappear. But this is the shape of the RBC only if that organism is a mammal. This is the shape of mature mammalian RBC. All other vertebrates other than mammals, they contain oval, biconvex, and nucleated RBC. This is present in all other vertebrates, including frog. But not only that, even within mammal, there's exception. and those exceptions are camel and llamas. These, despite being mammals, they contain oval biconvex nucleated RBC. Since the RBC is nucleated, the shape of the RBC becomes biconvex and oval. Okay, we know that mature mammalian RBC is biconcave due to the absence of nucleus. But what's the advantage behind it? Okay, from here, we know that the size of the RBC is small. That is, the volume of the RBC is small as well. But due to biconcavity, the surface area of RBC, however, becomes large, because if this RBC was biconvex, then at that time the surface area of the cell would have been less for the same volume as compared to biconcave structure. So the surface area due to biconcavity is more. So volume is less, but for the same volume, surface area is more. Overall, surface area to volume ratio is high. The advantage, due to this high ratio, large quantity of oxygen and carbon dioxide is transported by your RBC, even for small amount of hemoglobin, due to which the respiratory efficiency increases. Okay, that's your shape. Number 3 is RBC count. In male, the number of RBC is 5 to 5.5 million per cubic millimeters. In female, however, it's 4 to 4.5 million per cubic millimeter. Now you might be wondering, what's the reason behind RBC count being less in female as compared to male? There are two major reasons. Reason number 1, female, they don't have testosterone. Testosterone initiates the process of erythropoiesis. Since female don't have testosterone, erythropoiesis does occur, but at a lesser amount as compared to males. And number 2, females have to go through the process of menstruation every month, where heavy loss of blood occurs, due to which the RBC count decreases. This is the normal RBC count. However, there are abnormal conditions as well. So these are the abnormal condition. Abnormal condition occurs when the count of a cell is higher or lower than its normal count. If the number of RBCs is less than the normal number of RBC, then that particular condition is known as erythropenia or anemia, which can be caused due to several reasons. Due to deficiency, due to hookworm infection, many stuff. If the number is more than the normal number, then that particular condition is known as polycythemia. For example, at higher altitude, due to deficiency of oxygen as an adaptive measure in people living there, the number of RBC is higher than normal for hemoglobin amount to become more than normal, due to which higher amount of oxygen is contained within the blood, even though in atmosphere the oxygen percentage is low. That's the reason why, due to higher percentage of hemoglobin, due to higher number of your RBCs, their cheeks are red in color. And that particular condition is known as polycythemia. Didn't get it? Again, okay. At higher altitude, in atmosphere, the percentage of oxygen is low. Obviously, people living at higher altitude, they need to survive. To survive as an adaptive feature, automatically in their body starts producing more RBC, which means more hemoglobin, which means more oxygen can be taken in by the body for the small quantity of oxygen that is present in the atmosphere. Even that small quantity is taken in properly, due to which they are able to survive. And since their body contains higher percentage of hemoglobin, their cheeks, they look reddish in color. That condition is polycythemia. Okay, number 5. What's the average lifespan of RBC? an RBC lives for around 120 days. Now, what exactly happens after 120 days? The RBC goes through hemolysis, where lysis means breakdown. So the RBC is destroyed after 120 days. After 120 days, number 1, the RBC gets phagocytosed by WBC, that is, they get eaten up by WBC. And number 2, destroyed by spleen. Since they get destroyed at spleen, spleen is known as the graveyard of RBC. Not only that, spleen is also known as blood bank. Now you might be wondering, wait, what? How can a structure which is the graveyard of RBC be called a blood bank? Obviously, there's the reason behind being given these titles. Firstly, since maximum number of RBC gets destroyed per second in spleen, it is known as the graveyard of RBC. But at the same time, spleen stores the extra RBCs that are produced in your body. That's why it's also known as the blood bank of body. Then, number 7, which includes respiratory pigment. In RBC, as a respiratory pigment, we have hemoglobin, which is made up of 2 parts. There's your heme part, and then there's your globulin protein part. Let me show you this particular feature in a diagram. So there's your iron atoms. There are 4 iron atoms in one hemoglobin. These iron atoms, they are surrounded by protein. Bam, 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 and bam. These iron, they form the heme part of hemoglobin, and these iron, they impart a red color. Transportation of gases is possible due to heme part as well. On the other hand, the protein surrounding this iron, 2 of them are beta, 2 of them are alpha globulin protein. So 2 beta and 2 alpha globulin protein, which forms the globulin protein part. There you go. Number 8, function. Since RBC contains hemoglobin or the respiratory pigment, it helps in transportation of gases, that is, transportation of oxygen and carbon dioxide during the process of respiration. And that's it for RBC. In the next video, I'll be coming up with the next formed element or the next blood cell or the next blood corpuscle. With that, bye!